to the Megacast. I'm Tyler Keith from the studios of our flagship stations, Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. In addition, today, as always, we're on Birmingham area municipal access. Both of our television stations are on Comcast Channel 15 and AT&T Channel 99. We're also on the radio, of course, on 89.3 Lakes FM, but we're also on 88.1 WBFH, the Biff of service of the Bloomfield Hills School District. We're also online, civiccentertv.com. Find us there on our Watch Live link at the top of our homepage, or join us in that small player that's also at the top right, and we'll play on our homepage as well on your web browser. On your mobile phone, you'll need to go and scroll onto the left side of your page and click on the Watch Live link, but you can watch Civic Center TV live during our show each and every day, 10 a.m. until 12 noon, as well as throughout the week for replays as well, and during the day for all of our other regular programming also. We're also on My Michigan TV. You find that on mymitv.com, mymitv.com. That's Michigan's streaming service, My Michigan TV. And you can also subscribe for free at that website and learn more about other places you can find the My Michigan TV app, including on your mobile phone, on the Apple iOS store, as well as on the Android App Store as well, and on your smart TV apps as well, Roku TV. Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, and others, Apple TV, and many others that are listed on the website for My Michigan TV, mymitv.com. It is mymitv.com. We're also on Facebook today, as we always are, at facebook.com/CivicCenterTV15 and facebook.com/LakesFM. You can find more information about our show and everything else that we're doing here at Civic Center TV on CivicCenterTV.com. The first place I suggest you stop is CivicCenterTV.com/Megacast. You can learn more about all of our partnering television, radio, and other media outlets, as well as find full links to our episodes and our interviews each and every day on demand. You can watch them on your time. You don't have to join us every single day from 10 a.m. to 12 noon. Of course, you're always welcome to be here, and we encourage you to be here with us, but we understand not everybody has that free time for 2 hours during each and every one of these shows, and that can be a problem for some people, and they want to be able to tune in on their own time for the full 2-hour show on whenever it fits their schedule, or they only want to watch or listen to specific interviews that are about topics that are important to them and their family and their work life, and they can do that all at CivicCenterTV.com/Megacast by clicking on our Watch Full Interviews link or clicking on our Watch Full Episodes link. Then over at CivicCenterTV.com/Coronavirus, on most days we post our articles. Today we're having a little bit of trouble once again navigating the website. It's being difficult, like an angry parent with a dissenting opinion at a school board meeting that decides not to be cordial. We don't encourage that either, but hey, you know what? If it's going to happen, we're going to have to deal with it. So we'll try to get those articles up there at some point today, later on. But for now, what we're going to do is we'll continue to read through those articles. But before I get to that, I want to point you to the other links at that website that are just as important as each day's top stories, arguably more important. Links to the Centers for Disease Control, the state of Michigan, and Oakland County's specific COVID-19 pages. You don't need to weed through all the misinformation and the disinformation on the internet. You can get that information directly from sources that are on the front lines of this pandemic, that are doing research on the vaccines, that have statistics and have guidance about what precautions you can take at work, at home, at school, in child care facilities, when you're out in the public, to keep yourself and others safe from COVID-19. And it also provides information from many of our local municipalities here in Oakland County about specific information as it pertains to COVID-19 in your town. All of that is on our website, CivicCenterTV.com/Coronavirus. And right under that on most days, and we'll get to you later on today, are our top stories for today. Making news, we'll still go through these articles from the direct sources. We'll have exact links on our website to each and one of these, every one of these articles later on today. 1 in 5 Americans say they will not get the COVID-19 vaccine, a poll finds. This from the New York Daily News via the Detroit News. Vaccine resistance in the U.S. is trending downward, but a vocal minority remains, according to a new poll. 1 in 5 eligible people, or 20%, say they won't get a COVID-19 vaccine, according to the latest Axios Ipsos poll released on Monday. That's the lowest number since the pollsters began asking people about about the vaccines in early April. The drop could be influenced by a number of factors, including increased mandates by employers, rising case counts caused by the Delta variant, and, of course, the Food and Drug Administration's full approval for the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine. Also, 72% of Americans have received at least one shot, according to the CDC and their data, and the Axios-Ipsos poll arrived at the same number. In August, 14 million people got their first dose, up from 10 million in July, USA Today reported. Additionally, the U.S. has averaged 900,000 shots per day in recent weeks. That is up from 500,000 in mid-July. The poll also found more parents plan to make their children get vaccinated, with 68% saying that their kids either already got a shot or will when they are eligible. So some more encouraging news on the vaccine front. Not all that encouraging. It's not a game-changing number that was found in this Axios-Ipsos poll in terms of the reduction in vaccine hesitancy from the general public. And this was a very limited poll as well. But it's definitely some encouraging numbers, saying that we are having more people that are going out and getting vaccinated. Those numbers were up from 900,000 shots per day in recent weeks, as opposed to 500,000 shots over the course of mid-July in the same time period. That's a significant difference, and that's always good to hear. That being said, we want to take this with a little bit of a grain of salt, because still, in that article, it does say that 1 in 5 people that were surveyed said they would not get the vaccine, and that is roughly 20% of the population. If you take that into account and put that to the entire population of the U.S., that would mean we'd be capping off at about 80%. And as of right now, the latest numbers from the CDC say 72% of eligible Americans have gotten at least their first shot. So that would mean, if this poll is correct and these numbers are an accurate representation of the entire population, that we are approaching the maximum vaccination point at some point soon, with that 72% as opposed to the 80% of Americans, according to this poll, that would get the vaccine versus the 1 in 5 or 20% that would not. That full article from the Detroit News will be listed on our website later today. Also, an article from Bridge, Michigan Magazine, when it rains, it pours in regards to Governor Whitmer's administration, and calls for greater transparency, as in a memo, Governor Whitmer's staff reviews FOIA requests even though she's exempt from the law. Again, this article from our friends at Bridge, Michigan Magazine. Governor Gretchen Whitmer is not subject to the Michigan Freedom of Information Act, or FOIA, but an internal memo shows her legal team is asking to review any communications from her office before they are released to the public by state departments that must follow the law. Whitmer's spokesperson called the policy a government approach to increase efficiency, and officials from past administrations said governors' offices typically expected advanced warning before any sensitive information was disclosed. A lead open government advocate called the Whitmer memo, quote, problematic, however, because the review could further slow public records requests. And a conservative activist called Whitmer hypocritical, given that her 2018 campaign promised to boost transparency in her office. In a memo first issued in July of 2019 and revised in April, Whitmer's chief legal counsel, Mark Totten, directed department and agency directors to notify the governor's team when certain, quote, legal actions or developments arise, and closed quote, including pending public records disclosures involving Governor Whitmer or her staff. Quote, please provide the language of the actual request and a copy of all documents that include an, in quotations, executive office, in parentheses, executive office communication, and closed quote, the memo states, according to a copy Whitmer's office provided upon inquiry by Bridge, Michigan. The governor's office of legal counsel, quote, will promptly complete its review and notify the department that the review is complete. The memo continues. The department can then provide the responsive documents to the requester. The memo asks departments to notify the governor's communications director of any FOIA response that could generate a media story now or in the future, as was quoted, along with any requests sent to multiple agencies, so the executive office, quote, can assist with ensuring a timely, coordinated response, and closed quote. Lisa McGraw of the Michigan Press Association, which advocates for government transparency, called Whitmer administration's advanced review policy, quote, problematic because, quote, it just slows everything down, and closed quote. She continued on saying, quote, obstructionist is the word that comes to mind, end close quote. Under Michigan law, government agencies must acknowledge FOIA requests within 5 business days and then can extend the response time by 10 days. Complete responses, however, can often take weeks or even months. Whitmer spokesperson Bobby Letty said an executive office review occurs alongside the department's typical FOIA process and adds very little time. The governor's office, quote, never approves, rejects, or denies release of public records, said Bobby Letty, one of her communication staff, her spokesperson. Michigan is one of just 2 states in the nation that fully exempts its governor's office and legislature from public records requests, leading to a failing grade on transparency by a national watchdog group. As a candidate in 2018, Whitmer vowed to voluntarily subject her office to FOIA requests, but has not done so. Michigan's FOIA law, like the federal version, guarantees public access to records of most government bodies, including city and county governments and state departments. But some materials are exempt from disclosure, including those subject to attorney-client privilege. The Whitmer administration's memo is, quote, meant to ensure the executive office of the governor is fully informed about legal developments across state government, and close quote, Bobby Letty told Bridge, Michigan in the statement. Quote, as the executive office for the state of Michigan, it is important for our team to receive frequent updates from departments to ensure that state government is operating with the best information to make decisions that are in the best interest of Michiganders. Former Governor Rick Snyder's administration did not have a similar rule, according to former communications director Ari Adler, who said reviewing FOIA requests would be, quote, a pretty large amount of work, and closed quote, for the executive office. The Whitmer memo appears to be a, quote, formal version, and closed quote, of an informal expectation in previous administrations, says attorney Steve Lytle, who worked as legal counsel to former Governor Jennifer Granholm, a Democrat as well. Granholm's office did not have a written policy to review FOIA responses, but they were before they were released to the public, but it was, quote, certainly understood, and closed quote, that senior department leadership would provide updates on requests associated with the executive office. He said, this is a much more extensive article that is from Bridge, Michigan Magazine. Again, we'll do our best to post these articles, make sure they get posted later on today, and we apologize as we had some issues this morning, but it continues to raise questions because this was a governor who ran in 2018 with a grand promise of being more transparent than previous administrations, of being open to the public, of not having things that were hidden unless absolutely necessary or very sensitive, such as attorney-client privilege situations. And so we've had issues in the past with her flights down to Florida to visit her sick father, and who provided those flights. That's been the question that's come up, and while that may be of a personal nature and could be completely innocent, the lack of communication on that to the public, especially when avoiding travel except for absolute emergency situations or necessary situations, was being encouraged by the governor and her office. The same situation came into play, and the same questions came into play with the exit of former Michigan Department of Health and Human Services Director Robert Gordon as well, and his exit, and the payout that he took from the government, he received from the government as well as a buyout. That also was referred to as hush money and many other terms, and the governor's transparency was questioned thereof. So a situation like this, where documents that are being requested under Freedom of Information Act are being notified to the governor's office and going through multiple steps according to this memo and this report from Bridge, Michigan Magazine, it's understandable why that would come off as being quote-unquote problematic or something that raises some eyebrows. A, because of the governor's promise in her 2018 campaign to operate a more transparent government office and a more transparent system. And on top of that, the past issues we've had during the pandemic that have arisen. So I'm sure we'll continue to hear more about this going forward. And I don't think this will be the last time we hear questions about the transparency of our government, especially in the high executive office going forward. Also making news at civiccentertv.com/coronavirus from the Associated Press. Michigan standardized testing scores show pandemic setbacks. Michigan standardized test results were released on Tuesday, showing gaps in students learning during the pandemic, with state education officials noting lower than usual participation rates. Children in 3rd to 8th grade and 11th grade took the M-STEP test. All grades saw a decline in the percentage of students testing proficient or better in math from 2019 to 2021. Sixth graders saw the biggest drop at 6.5% less students testing proficient or better in math. A similar decline was seen in social studies. Students in 3rd and 7th through 7th grades saw a decline in English language arts scores, with 8th and 11th grade seeing some, while 8th and 11th graders saw improvements. The Department of Education in the state noted participation in different subjects in the M-STEP ranged from 64% to 72%, making comparisons to previous years tricky. Schools in wealthier districts with resources to offer more in-person instruction and accommodate a safer in-person test-taking experience were more likely to have higher test participation. The Michigan Department of Education asserts that groups of students who are historically lower achieving did not have the opportunity to participate at the same rates as some groups of historically higher achieving students. Quote, the 2020-2021 school year was such an uneven year that with health risks for students and staff, inconsistent technology, and variations in teaching and learning across the state, said State Superintendent Michael Rice in a news release. He continued on, an analysis of M-STEP results must factor in low participation rates in state testing, and closed quote. Michigan took steps to reduce inequalities between school districts by creating a 2022 budget allocation of $17.1 billion that aims to create more equality in per-student funding between school districts. Also Tuesday, Michigan State University's Education Policy Innovation Collaborative released a report on benchmark data, but also provided insight on the M-STEP test. According to the report, third graders who are subject to a state law that requires schools to identify those within the grade with reading and writing struggles saw a significant decline in participation. The report says 96.5% of third graders took the M-STEP language arts portion for the 2018-2019 school year, while only 71.2% took it for this past academic year. Black students were the least likely demographic to take that portion of the M-STEP, according to that report. Also, economically disadvantaged students were less likely to participate than their non-economically disadvantaged peers, the report said. So, seeing some uneasy news about testing scores in Michigan during the last school year. Of course, many of these tests were considered optional. Some of them were foregone by some school districts, and some students simply did not participate because they could not participate. And again, it points to the disparities and the inequities in education in our state across districts that are in wealthier areas and those that are in less economically advantaged areas also, which is something that has been addressed at the state level, or is being addressed at the state level. It's being better recognized, and hopefully going forward, not only with these $17.2 billion being allocated through state funding to address this issue, but also in the future beyond those $17.2 billion and beyond all this COVID relief money that's being rerouted one way or another to provide help in the education front. Hopefully beyond that, this continues that conversation of inequities in our education system in the state of Michigan, because according to this data, there has been a significant impact on several different students in several different areas. But there are some clear inequities between school districts that are in more economically advantaged areas versus those that are not, as well as between certain demographics of students versus other demographics of students. And this is something that's important. So, more information on M-STEP test scores and to read this entire article from the Oakland Press, we'll post that on our website today at civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. Coming up after the break, we got a good show for you. In the first hour, I'll be speaking with Melanie Ducanel, the president and CEO of the Michigan Better Business Bureau, as we go through hurricane season, and people are going to be making disaster relief donations. Of course, the pandemic continues on. More people are looking to give if they have the opportunity to, but it also sets some people up for situations where others will take advantage of their good nature and their generosity, and we'll want to talk to her about that. At 10:40, really excited to have our first in-person interview in our studio here since March of 2020, when we had West Bloomfield Deputy Police Chief Kurt Lawson roughly 6 feet away from Dave Scott in our former studio. We'll have Byron Cancelmo, a local musician, in with us to tease one of his upcoming shows in September. Then in the second hour, we'll speak with Peter Provenzano Jr., the Chancellor of Oakland Community College, Garret Passiak, the brand ambassador for Detroit City Distillery, and we'll cap off the show later with Laura Peltz, the owner of Franklin Cider Mill, which is getting ready to open as we approach the fall season. That and more coming up. You are watching and listening to the Megacast.
Parents do a lot of worrying. Get your kids caught up on childhood vaccines to protect them from these 14 preventable diseases, and you'll have 14 fewer things to worry about. Vaccines are safe and effective and save lives. So let's get caught up on vaccines and worry about something else. Get the facts at ivaccinate.org.
One of the things you can look for in your friends is a change in behavior.
These can be big changes, they can be small changes in mood, physical appearance.
They may be sleeping less or sleeping more, drinking more, or their eating patterns may be different.
One big change that can be pretty obvious is change in motivation. Do they no longer want to play basketball? Do they no longer want to play video games?
Now that we're spending more time online and in virtual settings, it's really important to pay attention to the language that your friend is using and the words they're using to communicate.
So when we text our friends, are they taking longer amounts of time to respond? Are they not responding at all? You don't have to be an expert to try to recognize these signs. The second that you feel it in your gut and that you're concerned, that's the second to have the conversation and open the door to what might be going on.
Whatever gets you talking.
Welcome back to the Megacast. I'm Tyler Keith here in our studios in West Bloomfield Township as we continue to talk about different stories and different topics that are impacting not only southeastern Michigan but viewers all across the Great Lakes state with regard to COVID-19 and other points of information and hot topics all throughout Michigan and the United States. And part of that is, as we continue through time, as we continue through this crisis of ours, more people are in need of additional help from the generosity of others, whether it be organizations and nonprofits that are directly going out and helping these people, or through other crowdfunding sources as well. But that also opens the door for people that are wanting and seeking to commit crimes of opportunity and take advantage of the kindness and the good nature of others. And one person that is on the front lines working to help people avoid those situations and be able to use their generosity and their good heart for legitimate purposes is Melanie Ducanel. She is the president and CEO of the Better Business Bureau of Michigan, joining us now on the Megacast. Melanie, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Tyler.
So right now, after a disaster such as Hurricane Ida or the continuing pandemic, we often see a lot of these advertisements, these public service announcements saying, hey, we need donations for this organization or this or that organization, or pandemic relief telethon pops up or something like that. And there's other donation drives as well, whether it be for supplies or some other supplies, monetary donations, food, whatever the case may be. But with that comes opportunities also for scammers to take advantage of people's generosity. What do we typically see? What usually is the timeline from when we start to have these calls for relief and calls for the generosity of others to help other people, and then have these scammers also come into play?
Wow, those are a lot of questions. So Tyler, I'll try to start from the beginning. The time that scammers start asking for donations is usually within a couple of hours of the disaster happening. I mean, they're really quick to act, and that's the difficulty. But there are so many things you can do to protect your money. And I'm going to use the Humphreys County, Tennessee example. The CEO of the BBB in Tennessee reached out to us directly. We know her. We know what's going on. She has boots on the ground. Those are all three great things. You need to know who's asking. You need to know how they are involved. And then you need to know if that charity has actually got boots on the ground. Now, there are people that are just like, hey, I just want to give the money and step away. And that's great if, one, you know who you're giving to. If you don't know who you're giving to because it popped up in your Facebook feed or you got a text message or something like that, that's when you have to really slow down, take a look, and do a little homework.
And where should people go, whether it be websites or numbers they can call? Obviously, the Better Business Bureau would be a resource that can provide some help on determining the legitimacy of a business and maybe be able to point them in the right direction for some of these nonprofits as well. But are there other resources that people can access that the Better Business Bureau would suggest to take those steps to verify these charities that they're looking into or that they're seeing advertisements for?
There's quite a few places, and one of them is our sister organization called give.org. It's part of our Wise Giving Alliance organization, and they actually accredit charities. They go through and they look at their standards of trust and make sure that those charities abide in those. There's also a very active resource, and that's our state's Attorney General's office. Charities in the state of Michigan need to register with the state. Now, 40 out of 50 of our states have their charities register. So depending upon where your charity is located, you could go to that Attorney General's office website and see if they've been registered. The other thing that you can look at is Charity Navigator. They also look at their financial statements and those kind of things to make sure that they're a legitimate business. Last but not least, you can also look at the IRS's website. They will tell you if it is a registered tax-paying, or not really always tax-paying, but a registered organization with the federal government. So there's lots of quick resources you can do. It's all done on the internet. So here's my beware statement. Don't use what is provided to you for a URL. You do all the typing yourself. Don't just take something and copy and paste into your web browser. You actually do. So AmericanRedCross.org. If you got a link that's at AmericanRedCross.com, that's probably not American Red Cross. So you need to know exactly what you're working with.
We're joined by Melanie Ducanel. She is the president and CEO of the Michigan Better Business Bureau with us on the Megacast. And Melanie, when people are finding these charitable organizations, you've identified some points they should look for to identify legitimacy, but are there other red flags that they could be seeing as well, whether it be a boots on the ground organization that's approaching them at the grocery store or in some other public place, or it be something online, whether it be an email or it be a link? What are some red flags that people should look out for that when they see, they immediately should take a step back and be like, oh, whoa, this organization that looked like it was doing wonderful things and it's a legitimate charity and it's actually helping a lot of people may not be everything it seems to be?
So the first clue is that they guarantee 100% of your donation is going to go to the victims. I don't know of any organization that does not have overhead. They have to pay staff. They have to pay for vehicles to transport the goods to the disaster. They have to pay for gasoline. They have to pay for storage. So there are administrative costs that actually will eat into every donation some way, somehow. The only example that is different from that is if, for whatever reason, there's a benefactor that just covers all of the organization's operational costs. But that example is so few and far between. So if they say 100% of your donation is going to go to the relief efforts, beware. Another thing is, how are your donations going to be used? And if they're kind of pussyfooting around going, well, it's going to go, it's going to do that, beware. So, and then always use the one that really kind of irks me is, we've heard it in other online shopping scams, but some of these scammers are using celebrities to drive donations. Do yourself a favor, Google that celebrity's name and charity and see what they actually support, because at the end of the day, there's a real strong chance they're not supporting this type of relief effort for this particular charity.
We're joined by Melanie Ducanel. She is the president and CEO of the Michigan Better Business Bureau. Now, Melanie, some organizations may jump through all the hoops that they need to, go through all the steps that they have to become legitimate organizations, but that doesn't necessarily mean that all the work that they're doing is like you said, 100% is a red flag, but is
Right.
going majority toward the actual cause. Sometimes these nonprofits are using some of those funds for other means. Is that something that they have to be transparent with to potential donors, or is that something that they can relieve themselves from disclosing as long as they are running their operation within the law?
It really depends on the ethics of that organization of whether or not they want to be 100% transparent. It is not a legal requirement. So what you can do is you can look at the financial statements. So as an example with Charity Navigator, they will print out the financial statements of that organization. So you could quickly look and see how much is going to payroll, how much is going to building, how much is going to programming. And I do want to give you one cautionary point, though, is that if you see an organization that is 100% human driven, meaning the way that the services and the programs are delivered is by humans, you're going to see a salary number that may throw you off base. You may say, hey, wait a minute, 70% of their overall revenue source is going to salaries. That's crazy. But if it's hands and boots on the ground, that they need to deliver the services that way, your payroll is going to be high. So just because payroll is high doesn't mean it's bad, but you have to know exactly what they are providing. Now, if they are just a logistics company, as an example, there is a nonprofit that flies patients out of remote areas, such as up in Alaska, to the hospital and stuff like that, and it's a charity. If you look at their expenses, a lot of it goes to airplane fuel, it goes to airplane maintenance, it goes to personnel cost. But if you're going, but how's that the program? That is entirely the program.
We're joined by Melanie Ducanow. She is the president and the CEO of the Michigan Better Business Bureau, joining us today on the Megacast. And Melanie, for those that do end up falling victim to some of these more predatory charity scams or to organizations that are more predatory than helpful, and maybe predatory is a bad choice of words for them, but maybe they're leading people on more than they are leading people to help. Are there protections in place for general consumers and for donors to ensure that if they do fall victim, they have some help in place to either help them relieve their information from distribution, or to maybe relinquish some of the funds that have been put out there and maybe gone to purposes that they didn't think that it was going towards?
Potentially, and I use that in quotations, potentially, if you used a credit card to make your payment and you can prove that the money did not go to charitable outcome, you could talk to your credit card company and get a refund. The other resource, and the strongest one, but the problem is that it's going to take a long time to potentially get a refund, is the state's Attorney General Dana Nessel's office. They do have a charitable organization task force and team that watches our charities in the state very closely. If this charity is out of state, again, you can go to the state Attorney General. The other thing that you can also look at is the Federal Trade Commission, because depending upon how they solicited you, that could also be something that they could advocate on your behalf. So, but sadly, if you generally give a donation, the donation is gone. So that's why the upfront homework is so important.
We're joined by Melanie Ducanow. She is the president and the CEO of the Better Business Bureau of Michigan, with us today on the Megacast. And Melanie, not all charities are created the same. A lot of people will make donations to a cause that they find near and dear to their heart, or something that is tugging at their heartstrings at one moment in time. They may make a donation and think, well, hey, this organization, I've done my research, I've done my homework, they're doing good work, I want to help and make a donation, and the benefit for me is I can deduct that from my taxes later on. But that's not the case with every single charity, correct?
That's correct, especially, and this is probably the one that pulls at your heartstrings the most. A family loses their house to a fire and they do a crowdfunding site. And so everybody wants to make a donation to that family. 99% of the time, the family is not created a charity in order to receive those funds. So that will not be tax deductible. So again, one of those other upfront questions, are you a 501c3 charity? If you understand that designation, that's an IRS determinant. And when you have that available, the charity should be able to give you a receipt if it is fully tax deductible.
We're joined by Melanie Ducanel. She is the president and CEO of the Michigan Better Business Bureau, joining us today on the Megacast. Melanie, just another couple minutes with you before we'll say goodbye today. Is there anything else right now that is of great concern or should be of concern to consumers in a general sense across the board, whether it be related to charities and to charity scams or to other issues that the Better Business Bureau is working on?
So we're just coming into what I consider the tidy up and button up season known as fall and winter before we all go back and hibernate in our houses. So we're all looking at roofing and waterproofing and all those kind of things. So home improvement scams are still out there, so you have to be careful. And again, I know I say this word too many times, but homework is imperative. So know exactly what you want to get done and what your budget is in advance of having anybody come and give you a quote. You may be completely surprised, because of the availability of contractors right now being so few and far between. As an example, I'm looking at tuck pointing my chimney before winter, and I talked to him at the beginning of July. I'm going to see him in October. So if you're going to do these things, you really need to do your homework and get that contract signed now, because you're going to find that they're booking so far in advance that you might not actually get it done in 2021.
We're joined by Melanie Ducanel. She is the president and the CEO of the Michigan Better Business Bureau with us today on the Megacast. Melanie, before we let you go, what are some important links that are provided through the Better Business Bureau or web pages through the Better Business Bureau that you would suggest people view before they make donations or before they make business decisions for some of those fall tidying up procedures they want to go
Sure.
for?
You can always go to bbb.org, and for our local area, it's /Detroit. Because the Better Business Bureau covers all of North America, including Canada and Mexico. So we are trying to protect you everywhere you go on our continent. But if you're specifically looking for tips on what to do for home improvement or for charity, we do have a search button. Just type in that, or look at our news and events column as well. We can also show you what our tips are. But the most interesting part of what we do is we have a website called BBB Scam Tracker, and you can actually look by zip code on what kind of scams and frauds are going on in your area. And if, as an example, my family lives in Nevada as well, so if I'm looking to do something on behalf of my parents, I can look specifically at Nevada's zip code and see if there's anything in particular that they need to be wary of, and I can alert them as well.
Well, Melanie, we appreciate having you on. Thank you for all this very helpful information, especially as people respond to Hurricane Ida, the situation with the evacuation of troops from Afghanistan and other issues that will pop up, and charitable opportunities. It's important for people to know this information, and as they go into the fall and make those home improvements and other changes in their life as well, and interact with some local businesses, hopefully legitimate ones, and if not, they'll have the tools they need to figure out how to combat that before or even after they are in a precarious situation. So thank you for the information.
Thanks, Tyler. Appreciate being here.
Appreciate it. Melanie Ducanel, president and CEO of the Michigan Better Business Bureau. On the other side of the break, we'll be joined in studio by a couple of people. We'll be joined by Byron Cancelmo, a local musician from the Byron in Motion Band, as well as Sheryl Hauk from the West Bloomfield School District. That's coming up next. You're watching and listening to the Megacast.
To join Michigan's Organ Donor Registry and help build a bridge of hope for organ, tissue, and eye donation. Just one person can potentially save or help improve the lives of up to 75 people. By joining, your legacy could be the gift of life. Sign up today at michigan.gov/SOS or at any of the more than 145 Secretary of State self-service stations located across Michigan. Be part of Michigan's Bridge of Hope by adding your name to the Organ Donor Registry.
When times get dark, we can't see the help that's all around us. When you don't know where to turn, let 211 be your guiding light.
211. How can I help you?
Our guides are ready to connect you with the help you need. For help with food, healthcare, mental health, and other resources. Call 211 or visit 211.org. 211. Get connected, get help.
How does marijuana affect the teen brain?
Our brains are still developing into our 20s.
With regular use, marijuana can affect teen brain development.
It can affect our brain's circuitry and blood flow and impair thinking, learning, and memory function.
Which could hold us back from reaching our potential.
Don't let marijuana mess with your brain.
Get the facts at michigan.gov/drug-free.
I couldn't breathe at all. There was lots of talk about putting me on a ventilator. I thought I was gonna die. I was 39 weeks pregnant and had a scheduled C-section. During that time, I got COVID and was hospitalized for a month. I had a blood clot in my lungs. It caused me to go into right-sided heart failure. I was really scared. I kept texting my husband and my mom, telling them how scared I was, and I was worried that he was gonna grow up without a mom. And then I was worried if, when I did get home, that he wouldn't know who I was. You know, being 27 and a mom and a wife and having that all almost taken away from me. It's scary, and if a vaccine can prevent that from happening, why not? Get your vaccine. I don't want this to happen to anybody else.
A message from the staff of Michigan's Crime Victim Compensation Program.
Anyone can be a victim of crime
and suffer lasting trauma, physically, emotionally, and financially.
But you are not alone.
If you're struggling financially due to a crime,
we're here
for you. Find out if you qualify for crime victim compensation. Call 877-251-7373 or visit michigan.gov/crime victim.
A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, Division of Victim Services.
You see certain things get reincarnated in your children. My daughter is very much inspired by my wife's artistic pursuits. So my daughter started making necklaces. She makes what we call affirmation fashion. I tell her every day that your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful. And if there's anything better than being beautiful, it's being smart. And if there's anything better than being smart, it's being kind. And reaffirming that every day is our method of making sure her chin never drops. My dad wasn't around, and I remember riding a bike and falling off and cutting myself, and me never just wanted to get back on it. People ask, how your children learn how to ride a bike, and you did. I didn't teach them. I just created an environment where they taught themselves, and all I had to do was be there.
Here in our studios in West Bloomfield Township as we continue to broadcast about a number of different issues, COVID-19, other interesting topics as well, throughout the Oakland County area and across the state of Michigan on a variety of television, radio, and other media outlets. We're pleased to be joined now in the studio by Byron Cancelmo. He is a local musician, part of the Byron Legacy Show, which will be performing at Shain Park alongside the West Bloomfield School District Chorale on September 8th from 7 o'clock to 9 p.m. Byron, welcome to the show. Appreciate having you on.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us a little bit about this show coming up in September. It's a little bit more of a special show. I know that normally it's you, it's your wife, and it's some of your band members, but you're kind of expanding out and adding more people in. It's a little more fun.
Right, absolutely. So the Birmingham was supposed to do concerts in the park last year, but it was canceled because of COVID. They canceled again this year. Then last minute, 4 months ago, they decided to have those concerts. So every Wednesday night, from 7 to 9 p.m. we do the concerts. We're going to be the last of the concert series this year. So September 8th will be the last one. And I wanted to make it special. I'm from West Bloomfield, Birmingham's right next door. Shain Park is right in the center of Birmingham, close to Townsend Hotel. Most people are familiar with the 220 on Merrill. It's all right there, There's ample amount of parking. You get a lot of residents that can come through, and typically it draws a few hundred people in the audience. We did it 4 or 5 years ago, and I think there were about 300 people out there. Our show, the Byron Legacy Show, is an 11-piece band now. So we have a large horn section, and we've got multiple singers, backing vocalists. And I love the sound of the human voice. I took chorale myself, and I traveled Europe with our chorale group, and I find the human voice together in harmony intoxicating, almost as exciting as hearing great horn section together. You have a great vocal section together. So we're doing a couple patriotic songs 3/4 into our set, and I thought it would be a great idea to have Sheryl Hauk and her Lakers Express, specifically chorale, come in and join us on those 2 songs. So I had asked her to if she would be willing to participate, and she quickly responded that sounded wonderful, but she had to get some clearance with the local school, West Bloomfield High School various folks she had to speak to about this, because we are still in a COVID situation, safety protocols, and whether or not that'll work out. And it did work out, so we did get confirmation on that, and I'm super excited. So it's a pretty good sized production, and we're gonna sing songs from Tom Jones, big hits from his early days, from his early career. So nothing new that when with the MTV, we're not singing any poppy stuff. It's all classic Tom Jones, Neil Diamond, Elvis Presley. My wife sings Karen Carpenter, Nancy Sinatra. She even has a Patti Smythe song that we've incorporated some horns with. So, we love to thrill the audiences with our music and performances, and we've been getting incredible feedback from our show. So I wanted to try to get word out, get as many people as possible to come out and just celebrate the beginning of the school year. We're kind of somewhat safe with COVID, and just be able to get in the outdoor situation and put on a great free concert for everybody is, I'm excited, and I can't wait to hear Sheryl's students' voices come together on these patriotic songs. It's just going to be, that alone is worth coming out. I do have Sheryl Hauk here, and I invited her to come by and just kind of talk about her students a little bit and what they've achieved. Some of her past students, what where they've actually gone to since leaving West Bloomfield High School under her direction. It's pretty fascinating stuff. If you don't mind, I'll have Sheryl Hauk come on.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll bring Sheryl Hauk in. She is the choir director at West Bloomfield High School, and her students will, of course, be joining Byron at this show with the Byron Legacy Show, bringing Vegas to you, starring, of course, Byron Cancelmo, who we've had on with us today as well. That show's 7 o'clock to 9 p.m. on September 8th at Shain Park in Birmingham. It's a free concert, and Sheryl, having students participate in this concert with a professional musician at a show that has a wide range of an audience. As Byron said, they've had in the past hundreds of people that have shown up to this. Having that opportunity, especially after a school year last year, where a lot of those opportunities either were transitioned into virtual, which is a completely different element, brings a completely different element to performance than an in-person performance, but also having that renewed energy. What does that bring to your student musicians, especially those upperclassmen who are going back in this year with one last opportunity to make those memories?
Yeah. Well, Tyler, it's really exciting to have this time with Byron. We have sung with Byron for, I think, almost 10 years. So we've known and had relationships with him. And when he said, "Hey, could you do the first concert with me?" I'm at first, "Oh, it's COVID, how can we do this with COVID?" And yet he has made it so that it's outside. He has this wonderful playlist, and the best thing he doesn't even know about is the 2 songs that we're singing with him it's September 8th, and they're about America. And with September 11th coming up, we've been able to really understand the importance of these songs that he's going to sing. And the kids, we talked about it yesterday, they weren't born in 2001, but now they're singing the song and they're backing Byron up. And I think that they appreciate it more than ever because of COVID.
And on top of that, you mentioned the 20th anniversary of the September 11th attacks coming up, and that many of your students, or really all of your students at this point, were not even born when those attacks happened. And you can get a lot of education on that. I'm sure that's something that's brought up in their history classes or social studies classes. It's something they've probably discussed with their families before, but you get a different element of the education on what happened in the aftermath of that from experiencing that through music. And music not only helps people through some difficulties in their regular life, but but ultimately helped our country also in some ways and others, as did sports, through that. How have you been able to incorporate that kind of a lesson into this opportunity for your students, to not only have them get this great opportunity with a local musician in front of a lot of people, especially after the year they've been through, but also to better understand the impact that music can have in the wake of tragedy, not only in response to COVID, but in response to something that they weren't alive for, that ultimately changed the world that they came into?
It's the perfect window to explore it. And when we sang America yesterday for the first time and put the harmonies to it, the kids were like, okay, we're putting harmonies. And it was a regular rehearsal. And then we stopped and we said, guys, let's talk about, America and the sacrifices. And we had a 10-minute discussion, and then we sang it again. And that's what's so great about music. It wasn't the same. They were putting dynamics and all those musical elements together, but to make it have more meaning. So it's going to be even more exciting to be with Byron, at the park and have all of these people, appreciating this music about America and our great country we live in.
How excited are the students to perform at this concert coming up?
I'm laughing because when Byron and I started to talk about it, he's like, oh, what if you just have 4 kids? What if you just... So right now we have 16 in Laker Express. And I said, who wants to go? And every hand went up. And so they're all so excited to do this. And Byron, thank you so much from them. So yes, they all can't wait.
We're joined by Sheryl Hauk. She is the choir director at West Bloomfield High School, as well as Byron Cancelmo from the Byron Legacy Show. Sheryl's students, 16 of them, in fact, will be performing with Byron and the Byron Legacy Show from 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock p.m. at Shain Park, in a free concert on September 8th. So thank you, Sheryl. Let's bring Byron back in for another couple of minutes as we begin to wrap this up. So Byron, we talked with Sheryl about the impact that this is having on her students. From your perspective and your band's perspective, bringing these 16 students in, having that extra element, you spoke earlier on your appreciation for the beauty in the combined human voice and music, but also having that impact of knowing that this is such a great opportunity coming out of what we've experienced over the past year and a half for these students, but also a teaching opportunity in the wake of as we approach the 20th anniversary of the September 11th attacks.
I'm just happy to have the mind to ask the question, are these students available? Are you willing to do something like this? Because it's something I would have wanted as a young student. I always looked up to peers, but you typically don't have access. It's very difficult to have access. And by opening myself up and my show to local talent, especially young students, they're going to remember that for the rest of their lives. I know they will. And it's meaningful to me. My wife is actually going to be singing one of the patriotic songs. Her father served in the Navy, and so she's going to speak about that right before the performance. So there's a lot of deep meaning to what we're doing, not only with the songs that they're going to be performing, but just the patriotic songs and just our show in general. I take a lot of passion and pride in having the same musicians I've had over the past 8 years that are sheet readers, but they don't even need most of them don't even need the sheets anymore, except for the horn section, of course, because it gets pretty intense for those guys. It's a pretty high-end horn section. When if you go back and listen to early Tom Jones songs, it's a full orchestra. I mean, these guys are duplicating that, and I think people of all ages should come up to the show and see and hear what the yesteryears were really like with these extraordinary artists, Tom Jones, Neil Diamond, Elvis, done properly, respectfully, without dressing up with jumpsuits and acting egotistical. We're just pouring it out from our hearts and our lungs, and we're giving as much quality vocal air as possible.
We're joined by Byron Cancelmo from the Byron in Motion band and the Byron Legacy Show, which will be performing with 16 students from West Bloomfield High School on September 8th from 7 o'clock to 9 p.m. in a free concert at Shain Park. And Byron, we spoke to Sheryl earlier about the excitement and the feelings and the emotions from her students coming back out into a performance like this in front of so many people potentially, and what impact that's having on them. For you and for your fellow musicians in the Byron Legacy Show and in your Byron in Motion band, coming back out into these more regular performances after a year that was really tough for a lot of musicians and other performers and entertainers. What are the emotions for you and for your band? What are the feelings for you and your band as you're coming back into more of these regular performances, seeing people in the flesh enjoying music, especially given what we've all been through in the last year and a half?
It's a feeling of we're just enlightened, and we feel appreciated even more so of our ability to perform live music and to entertain an audience. Our first dinner show was May 7th. We did that over on the east side, and we had about 200 people in a room that sat 600, so felt empty, but because of COVID there was restrictions, but every single one of those audience members were just enamored with the show, and I could feel just the energy off the audience more so than in the past. And we were treated like celebrities after the show just by the audience, just engaging back with us, saying how appreciated they were that we took, made the risk, did the show, because May 7th was kind of early still to make a decision like that. But since then, all the band members, I'm glad they all rehearsed during COVID, because we weren't very rusty when we came back. We were doing various Zoom sessions, Facebook Lives. Every musician. It's a little bit harder for the horn section, but as singers, it was and other musicians, it's easier for us to kind of collaborate and do these Zoom performances or Facebook Lives. And my wife and I sang several times on Facebook Live during COVID, so we kept up with it. But there's nothing like stepping out and singing in front of a live audience and doing it again. We went from stage to street overnight when COVID hit. Our last show was February 29th at the Andiamo Celebrity Showroom, and that was our biggest show to date. And then literally 2 weeks later, everyone had to pack up and go home, and people were selling their equipment. They didn't know what to do, how they're going to pay their bills, and it got scary for full-time musicians. My wife and I are blessed. We have full-time day jobs, so we were able to carry through. There was furloughs, there was some layoffs, but having things somewhat return and everyone's getting back to the music world, the musicians they're super engaged, super focused, and they're honing in their craft even more than before. They're taking every note seriously. They're taking every show seriously, every song seriously. Our rehearsals have gotten a lot better as a result. I think we've become even more of a family, to be honest with you, because they're less diluted now with all the performances that they typically do throughout the year, because a lot of the musicians we have in the band will fill in with some other bands. So there's not a lot of live music going on right now. So I'm actually in a really nice position to have these guys kind of with the show and really focused in on what we do. And like I mentioned, it's like a family. These are family members that are on stage with us.
Does it change the music for you, what we've experienced this past year, the music, the performance, everything that goes into your show? Does what we've experienced through this pandemic, through this crisis, and everything that's come from it, for you and for your bandmates, does it change the music coming back?
It does. I mean, you're hearing it more. You're taking it in. You're not turning and talking. If an audience members aren't really talking to one another, they're watching the show and listening to music and getting up and dancing more than I've ever seen. That could change. It could dwindle like everything else does. But for right now, I'm absorbing it and really appreciating it. And we're building a really strong fan base right now because people see that we're pouring out our hearts and souls up there. My wife and I have been singing together for a long, long period of time, and and she's been enjoying her lead vocal roles. Her Karen Carpenter has a lot of soft and wonderful ballads, and those are striking and engaging. The audiences are really appealing to those songs as well, and listening more. So we're listening more to each other, and I hope, when COVID's all over, that I really believe we just have good relations in general, and people are listening to the notes more. They're listening to lyrics more, and they're getting engaged, and they're less busy with their personal lives as a result of our median state of COVID here.
You can see Byron and the Byron Legacy Show, as well as 16 students from the choir at West Bloomfield High School at their free show coming up on September 8th, 7 o'clock to 9 p.m. at Shain Park. Sheryl, thank you for joining us, and Byron, thanks for being with us today.
Pleasure. Thank you, Tyler.
We appreciate it. On the other side of the break, we'll be transitioning from music to education, and we'll be joined by Peter Provenzano, Jr., Chancellor at Oakland Community College. You're watching the Megacast on multiple television stations in Oakland County and on the web, and you're listening to us on your radio home for the Megacast, 89.3 WBLD Orchard Lake and 88.1 WBFH Bloomfield Hills. The Megacast returns after this.
Who is struggling right now?
I am.
My son is.
Many are struggling with anxiety, depression, and substance use. Before it becomes a crisis, reach out to MyCal, the Michigan Crisis and Access Line, for free confidential support 24/7. Available in the Upper Peninsula and Oakland County. Just call or text 1-844-44-MyCal or chat online at michigan.gov/MyCal. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
I couldn't breathe at all. There was lots of talk about putting me on a ventilator. I thought I was gonna die. I was 39 weeks pregnant and had a scheduled C-section. During that time, I got COVID and was hospitalized for a month. I had a blood clot in my lungs. It caused me to go into right-sided heart failure. I was really scared. I kept texting my husband and my mom, telling them how scared I was, and I was worried that he was gonna grow up without a mom. And then I was worried if, when I did get home, that he wouldn't know who I was. Being 27 and a mom and a wife and having that all almost taken away from me. It's scary, and if a vaccine can prevent that from happening, why not? Get your vaccine. I don't want this to happen to anybody else.
Back to the second hour of the Megacast. I'm Tyler Keith, alongside our studio operator and board operator, Calvin Brown, with us each and every day here. We're live from 10 a.m. to 12 noon, Monday through Friday. You can also find all of our shows on demand at civiccentertv.com/Megacast, where you can find full interviews, as well as our entire 2-hour episodes each and every day there. Usually we post them about mid to late afternoon, usually by the end of our regular business hours at about 5 o'clock. We'll have those on our website, including on our homepage. You can find every interview from throughout our entire run of the show, minus a couple that may have disappeared for various reasons, at civiccentertv.com/Megacast. And we're pleased to be joined once again, and someone that you can see in multiple different interviews on that website. It's Peter Provenzano, Jr., the Chancellor of Oakland Community College, joining us again on the Megacast. Peter, thanks for being back with us.
Good morning, Tyler. It's always a pleasure to spend some time with you.
Pleasure to have you on as well. So, as we approach the beginning of the year, and as we have begun the year in many of our educational institutions, what is the status over at Oakland Community College? How are things going so far? Is it mostly in-person learning for this year? What is the status at O.C.C.?
Things are going really well. So this is our first semester in, wow, almost 2 years that we have brought back our face-to-face classes. And with vaccines, and it's allowed us to do that. But the real silver lining here is that we have more online classes than ever before, because we just took the time during the pandemic to get better at it and to train more faculty on it. So we're back face to face, but we're also providing more online classes than ever before, and as well as hybrid. I've spent the last couple of days, so classes just started a couple of days ago, starting on Monday. I've spent the last few days on the campuses, walking around, talking to faculty, talking to staff, as well as our students, and I can tell you that people are excited to be back. And they're also really pleased with the options that they have to not only be back face-to-face, but also online if that works out better for their schedule.
We're joined by Peter Provenzano, Jr. He is the Chancellor at Oakland Community College with us today on the Megacast. And Peter, as you mentioned all those options that the students have, for those that are in person, because it's such a hot button issue right now, I have to ask, what is the mask and vaccination requirement status at Oakland Community College? Is it different campus to campus? Is it consistent across the board? What are the rules that are in place?
So we have 5 campuses across Oakland County, and for all 5 campuses, we have a mask mandate in place, regardless of your vaccination status. And that's because Oakland County is, while we have a high percentage of high vaccination rate in Oakland County, we still are seeing this uptick in cases due to the Delta variant, which is no big surprise. Everybody is following that. And that's forced Oakland County, as well as really the entire state of Michigan, but Oakland County to be in this substantially high to high risk area. And so while we're in that area, we decided to have a mask mandate as we return back to class. And then within a week or so after that, Oakland County executive came out and made it mandatory for all of Oakland County. But we currently right now do not have a vaccine mandate. We're a little bit different than some of the universities. We are a commuter school. There are no dormitories. And so we have a very transient population of students. So right now we're really just focusing on encouraging students to get their vaccine, encouraging them to practice proper hygiene, washing their hands, simple things that we all know. And while we're in this high risk category, wear a mask. As I said, I've been at the campuses and students, faculty, staff, they're all complying. And I don't know that anyone really loves wearing a mask, but it certainly seems to be something that we're all used to and we all expect. And I think people appreciate that as far as allowing everyone to stay safe.
We're joined by Peter Provenzano, Jr., the Chancellor of Oakland Community College, with us on the Megacast. And Peter, earlier on in the pandemic, as other colleges and universities throughout the state were transitioning from in-person learning to online, as students were going back home for their school year and maybe leaving their universities and deciding to forego a semester and take classes instead at a community college or take a semester off. We did see an enrollment increase at some of our community colleges. In terms of this current school year, are we continuing to see enrollment evolve positively at Oakland Community College?
Yeah, we've been fortunate at Oakland, and I think it's just really the way that we've positioned the college and how quickly we transitioned all of those face-to-face classes at the beginning of the pandemic to online, and just really the way that we've supported students through the entire pandemic. Unlike most community colleges and universities, our enrollment has actually been pretty steady. Others have seen, in some cases, double-digit decline semester after semester. We've been pretty steady throughout the pandemic, and I can tell you that now that we're back face-to-face, I used to say post-pandemic. I'm not sure we're post-pandemic just yet, but I can tell you that when you compare our enrollment now, it's actually up. So we anticipate this fall, still a little early to tell, classes just started, but we really think we're going to end this fall with a double-digit increase, which is really telling about just the commitment of the team and our commitment to students and their success.
We're joined by Peter Provenzano, Jr., the Chancellor of Oakland Community College, today on the Megacast. And Peter, there's a reported $7 million in federal grant money that is becoming available this fall semester at O.C.C. to students. How is that money going to be divvied up? What does that go towards?
Tyler, that's a great question. We actually have $14 million that is being sent to us for the entire year from the federal government. But what we decided to do is to break that up into 2 pieces. The fall semester as well as the winter semester, and we've divided it up amongst both semesters, $7 million each. What we're going to do is we're going to distribute that to our students, and right now we're encouraging our students to apply for that money. They will receive at least $300 per student. It could be more depending on their financial need, but at a minimum they'll receive $300, and that goes a long way. Let me give you an example. At Oakland Community College, because we are incredible value, our credit hours are $99 a credit hour. That's the cost for in-district tuition. And so if you do some really quick division, a $300 distribution of federal money will actually pay for an entire class at O.C.C. So we're really encouraging our students to apply for that money. It is just, we want to give it to them. We're trying to get it out and get the word out.
Who is eligible for this grant money?
Everyone, all students. Any student that is taking classes this fall at O.C.C. will be eligible for that money.
And how? Where does this money come from? It's federal grant money, but how specifically did O.C.C. come to obtain this? Was this generally applied to different education institutions, or did O.C.C. have to apply for it?
Yeah, so it was actually given to all higher education institutions. It's Higher Education Relief Funds. We call it HERF in short. And it's really part of the pandemic relief that was sent to the United States, from the United States government to all higher ed institutions. And so we have a little bit of flexibility how we need to distribute that, but essentially it has to go directly to our students. And so we decided to give it directly to our students to allow that money to put it to good use so that they can use it to further their educational journey.
We're joined by Peter Provenzano, Jr., the Chancellor at Oakland Community College, with us on the Megacast. And you mentioned earlier on the variety of different educational opportunities that are still available for students in this semester. While a lot of people are returning to in-person learning at many institutions, including O.C.C., what are some of those additional options that are available for students? And once they're in one subset versus the other, or they're mixed between, do they have opportunities to transition to others depending on where they are at with COVID-19 and their feelings and of safety toward the virus?
They really do. So that's what's beautiful, and that's a real silver lining, as I mentioned, to this pandemic. We are providing more online classes, in fact, more online programs. We're well on our way in a couple of years to have 22 fully online programs available to students. And so that provides an extreme amount of flexibility to them to continue on with their educational journey that wasn't available to them before. Also, we have all of our student services online. That was something that we learned how to do really, really well during the pandemic. You couple all of those things with the face-to-face classes that we're known for, and students have the flexibility to continue on with their educational journey with extreme, they have extreme flexibility. That really goes hand in hand with what we're known about, what we're known for. One of the things that we really encourage students to do, and we have done this for the last 50 years of our existence, is to try new things. When you have credit hours at $99 in-district tuition rate for $99 a credit hour, it allows you to explore a little bit more. Oftentimes when universities are far more expensive than that, to try a class to see if you think that this might be a good fit for you, it can be incredibly expensive. With O.C.C., you have the ability to try new things and explore what you're really passionate about. On top of that, we have scholarships and federal money that's available, as we just mentioned, to help offset the costs even further.
We're joined by Peter Provenzano, Jr., the Chancellor of Oakland Community College, today on the Megacast. And Peter, earlier on, we had talked about a situation earlier on in the pandemic where students that were going to virtual learning from their four-year institutions maybe took a couple of gap semesters, a gap year, went to community colleges instead to take care of some of those prerequisite classes or reevaluate their educational future. How has that relationship then impacted institutions like yours and your relationships with those four-year universities? Because ultimately those students are looking to go back in most cases to those institutions, but it also changes the game for those institutions also, because they know that they're losing a lot of students and they want to be able to retain them without having them in a situation where they may forego returning to that institution because some of their classes that they took in the meantime don't transfer over.
It's interesting, the pandemic really has not changed our relationship with our four-year university partners. We've always had a great relationship with our university partners. In fact, most universities, especially in Metro Detroit, about, depending on the year, 40 to 50% of their graduates actually came as a transfer student. They came from somewhere else, most likely one of the area community colleges. And so our universities have always identified the fact that we are a tremendous feeder school to them. In fact, there was one of the semesters that their new enrollment was actually down during the pandemic, some of the universities, but their transfer students coming from community colleges was actually up. And so I actually think that this pandemic strengthened our relationship with those universities. And it also allowed students to, as I mentioned, to stay on their academic journey. We've had situations where students may have took a gap year. As I would say, don't take a gap year. There's no reason to sit on the bench, stay in the game. They may have taken a gap year with all of the disruption, but instead they took a class at O.C.C. They did it online, and now they're transferring it back to their respective university. During a time when that university may have been closed, the dormitories were closed and there was a tremendous amount of disruption. So I think we've done a really nice job of partnering with the universities to continue to work together, both of us, to focus on the success of students across Oakland County.
We're joined by Peter Provenzano, Jr., the Chancellor of Oakland Community College, with us today on the Megacast. And Peter, just another couple minutes with you before we'll say goodbye today. Is there anything else that would be interesting or important for our audience to know about Oakland Community College this semester or going forward before we say goodbye?
Several things. One of the things that I've been really passionate about and talking to parents across Oakland County is something that many of them don't know about. We're trying to get the word out, but there's a dual enrollment program through the state of Michigan where high school students are able to take a class at a higher educational institution at Oakland Community College, and you can do this for free. And it's a great way for a high school student to kind of dip their toe in the water, take a college credit class. Not only will it transfer to any university that you may decide to go to, hopefully decide to stay with O.C.C. And use it towards your certificate or degree, but it allows you to try some different things. There's a lot of pressure on students in high school to decide what they want to be when they grow up. And I can tell you my kids have taken advantage of dual enrollment, and they've taken CAD classes and some different art classes, and to try to determine what type of career, what type of degree do they ultimately want to do. And also the skilled trades, it's huge. We have a ton of skilled trades programs that are available to high school students, and they can take these classes through dual enrollment for free. So reach out to your local high school counselor.
Well, Peter, we appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Love to be with you.
Peter Provenzano, Jr., Oakland Community College Chancellor, with us on the Megacast. Appreciate your time. Thanks for being with us. For more information, visit oaklandcc.edu. We're going to take a quick break. On the other side of the break, we'll be joined by Garret Passiak, brand ambassador for Detroit City Distillery, coming up next. You're watching and listening to the Megacast.
Motorcyclists are hard to see. To keep everyone safer, it's important to always look for them and know where most crashes occur. 84% of motorcycle and vehicle crashes happen on streets, not highways. And most crashes with motorcyclists occur when vehicle drivers are turning left. So before turning, especially to the left, make sure you look for motorcyclists. Then look again. It could save a life.
To Sophia and Gabriel. Even though these old knees can't follow on your adventure to the forest today, these flowers represent my love. These stitches and threads join us together. And wherever you see a flower, a bird, a beautiful tree, know that my love is with you.
Make the forest part of your story at a park near you. Find one at discovertheforest.org.
Can I ask you a question? Why did you get your kids vaccinated?
It was hard for them to social distance, to be isolated from their friends.
I want them to get back to school and sports games. So as a pediatrician, I recommend the vaccine to everyone I know.
The boys lost a former teammate and classmate who was only 20 years old. It's been a devastating year.
We want to get back to normalcy. Our daughter is really looking forward to being with her friends, being a kid.
To the Megacast. I'm Tyler Keith alongside our studio producer and board operator Calvin Brown here in our studios. We're live Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 12 noon on a variety of television, radio, and other media outlets, as well as online, civiccentertv.com, and on My Michigan TV, Michigan's streaming network. It's available to you online at mymitv.com or mymytv.com. DetroitCityDistillery.com, as well as on the Apple iStore, the Android App Store, as well as and on your smart TV, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, Apple TV, and many other smart TV outlets. Just search My Michigan TV to learn more. And of course, view us on our Facebook page on facebook.com/CivicCenterTV15 and on facebook.com/LakesFM. We're pleased to be joined now by the brand ambassador for Detroit City Distillery, Garret Passiak. Once again, joins us on the Megacast. Garret, thanks for being with us.
Absolutely, Tyler. How are you this morning?
I'm doing all right. How are things over at Detroit City Distillery?
It is a very exciting time. As I have in front of me, as you can see, we finally have some new fun bourbons that we added to our line, and we're really excited. We're be 7 years old on September 3rd, so it's our 7th birthday, and we've got some really fun stuff for everyone to enjoy, especially coming down and for the months to come.
So Garret, give us a rundown, and congratulations on that almost 7 years of Detroit City Distillery. Give us a rundown on some of those new products that people should be looking out for.
Absolutely. So what we have had over the past 7 years, we've had our staples, which is our Butcher's Cut Bourbon and our Homegrown Rye, all right? So these have been award-winning. This one, double gold in San Francisco in 2020. This actually won a double gold in Bourbon County, Kentucky at the American Distillation Institute for our mash bill. It's a funny story. We got booed when we won that award because it was a blind taste testing contest. We kind of beat Bourbon County, Kentucky in their own backyard. So these have been our staples that we've been floating out for about 7 years. And as a young distillery, it's really fun to come out with new bourbons, all right? As our owner, Michael Forsythe, always said, bourbon takes time, and it's always a good quality to go ahead and enjoy that when you come out with a new bourbon, because you just don't make it overnight. You take time, you take pride in it, and you take quality, all right? That's where we came out right here with our 4-grain bourbon. What's the difference between a 4-grain bourbon and a regular bourbon? This is this is corn, rye, barley. This has a little bit of wheat to it, all right? So this is 59% corn, 19% rye, 12% wheat, 12% barley. It's got a nice apple kind of caramel nose to it. Once you finish it off the palate, nice smokiness to it with vanilla. All right, so we're super excited to go ahead and add this to our new line. And we have a release party September 3rd coming up. Definitely come down and join. And you can also get right here, we have a series of releases. This is going to be released on September 3rd. This is our maple finish bourbon. All right. Then you have on October 1st, we've got our wine finish barrel bourbon. And then on November 5th, you go ahead and have our special cognac finished bourbon. It's all a product of this right here, 4-grain bourbon. So
we're joined by Garret Passiak, brand ambassador for Detroit City Distillery, with us on the Megacast. And you talk about the encouragement from the owner of the distillery to experiment and to try new things and to develop new products. What is the process, both creatively and from a business perspective, that goes into Detroit City Distillery, making these new products and then releasing them to the public?
Absolutely. So the creativity that goes into place, the number one thing that we pride ourselves in is we are all 100% Michigan grain, locally based, no outsourcing, all right? In the heart of the city of Detroit, if you look at the Butcher's Cut Bourbon, this gentleman right here, that is the grandfather of our master distiller, John Paul, who used to be a butcher and a whiskey maker in Eastern Market. So number one, you want to take the quality and pride in Michigan grains. Next thing you want to do is take the pride in the city of Detroit. Combine those, you have one of the best products, in my opinion, that is locally sourced, locally made here, and brings out that spirit of Detroit.
We're joined by Garret Passiak. He's the brand ambassador for Detroit City Distillery with us today on the Megacast. And Garret, I know that as we head into the fall season, as we head toward the holiday, there are a lot of also specialty products that are released as well by Detroit City Distillery. What are some that people should be on the lookout for in the next several months as we head into the fall, go through the fall and into the holiday season? And when would you suggest that they get after these? Because these go quick.
Exactly. So the specialty products we've been working on for almost a year, or actually 2 years, all right? And those are sitting right here that have not yet been released to the public. So what you have right in front of here are the specialty products. Best way to do it, in my opinion, is to come down to Eastern Market September 3rd. All right. We start selling tickets for these two at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And then at 6 o'clock, it's available for standing in line, and you kind of auction off your bottles that you get. All right. In that meantime, you can enjoy our classic bar over there at 2462 Riopel. There'll be music, there'll be food, and of course you can enjoy our regular cocktails. 6 o'clock, you're ready to go ahead and pick up these specialty bottles here. Again, in October, on October 1st, they're gonna go ahead and release this one right here, the red wine finish. And then November 5th, they'll have the cognac finished bourbon. All very unique tastes. With fall coming up, there's nothing more fun and palatable than bourbon.
We're joined by Garret Passiak. He's the brand ambassador for Detroit City Distillery. All these new products he's talking about, you can experience yourself, including the 4-grain straight bourbon starting Friday, September 3rd. Their launch party, 4 p.m. to midnight at their location at the Tasting Room at historic Eastern Market. Then they'll have releases every Friday beyond that through the months of October and each week of the month in November as well. And so, Garret, other things at the distillery that have been common before have been distillery tours. Are those back in motion?
Tours are back in motion, absolutely. Every Saturday, we do them at 11 and 1 p.m. You can go to our website. You can go ahead and sign up for. You get a very, very wide range of history of Detroit City Distillery. The history of where we're standing at right now in the old Stroh's Goebel storage warehouse and ice cream factory. Then a little bit of fun facts about whiskey. Some people have, the questions, what's the difference between bourbon? What's the difference between rye? You go ahead and explain that. You get a full little tour of the process of making bourbon. And then you go ahead and get to come up here to our event space, and you get a tasting of any.
It seems that we have had a little bit of an audio loss from Garret here. Just a moment. We'll check with him. Maybe he is muted in the Zoom accidentally. Can we take a look at that? I'm not hearing him in the Zoom. I'll take a look, Calvin, see if he
Still
is.
there, Tyler?
Yeah, there we are.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, so
we're in a 25,000 square foot factory. We lose reception sometimes.
That's okay. So if you can continue back, you said that they can sign up for these tours online. We kind of lost everything after that, so if you want to go ahead and repeat the rest of that, we'll start from there.
I got you. Yeah, so you sign up online, all right? Then you can come here to the historic 25,000 square foot Stroh's Ice Cream Factory. You get a range of history of Detroit City Distillery, Stroh's Brewing Company, and why this is actually an ice cream factory, all right? Then we dispel a little bit of explanation. People have questions. What's the difference between bourbon? What's the difference between rye? That kind of thing. And then we go through the entire process of how we make our bourbon. Then we come up here to our event space. It's about 240 people, get to take a nice photo, nice break. Then we come in and then we conclude the tour. You get to sample bourbon. You get to sample rye. And after this release, if you book a tour, of course, we're going to go ahead and sample through our 4-grain bourbon. And if any of these guys are still left after their releases, if we can find one, we'll sample through those as well.
Oh, all the more reason to sign up for one of those tours. Garret Passiak with us.
Yep.
He is the brand ambassador at Detroit City Distillery. And you mentioned your event space. I know that you're also holding some special events still down at the Detroit City Distillery, including some wedding receptions. What's the response been like from the public on having those events in that historic building and at some place as interesting as Detroit City Distillery?
The response has been 100% absolutely amazing. We've got an amazing event staff, Alyssa, AJ, and Caitlin. They have been booking weddings, especially pre-COVID. When COVID hit, the pandemic, you had a lot of people postpone their weddings. So instead of having weddings booked all the way up until 2021, they're already rebooking up until 2022. And of course, we've got individuals already booking till 2023. It's an amazing event venue. It's an elegant / rustic style event venue, especially this day and age. Very, very beautiful venue. Lots of fun. We have a full bar here, fully stocked bartenders, classic cocktails, and I have not heard a bad review about a wedding ever. They're super, super amazing, and that's how the event space is. We also have corporate events, so corporate parties. So Tyler, you and the staff need to come here and have a holiday party coming up September or October or something like that.
Right. How would we go about signing up for that? How do people sign up for having their special events at the distillery?
What you have to do if you want a special event here at the distillery, very simplistically, events, EVENTS, at DetroitCityDistillery.com. One of our event staff will get back to you within 24 to 48 hours. And yeah, you can definitely go ahead and book a party.
We're joined by Garret Passiak. He is the brand ambassador for Detroit City Distillery with us on the Megacast. And Garret, on the business side of things, we've seen in many different sectors of business, especially in restaurants and in retail and in the food industries, there's been a lot of staffing issues and supply issues. Has that been a struggle for Detroit City Distillery, or how are you managing with those current crises that are ranging through the various sectors of business in different ways?
Absolutely. We are very fortunate here at Detroit City Distillery in that we are like a family, okay? So when the pandemic hit, what we did is we didn't panic, we pivoted, okay? So you had restaurants close. You had a lot of stores that were buying because there was a lot of demand for people that were going to be having cocktails and drinking at home. So that sector was full. If you were working with restaurants that were closing or even bartending, we, like a family, and we have a small staff that is very close, we pivoted. So for instance, our bartenders would switch to bottling hand sanitizer, helping bottle for the stores that were going on. So we luckily did not have a staffing issue. We all stayed close. They opened up the bar across the street, closed off the street, and had a block party. We were able to have an engaged staff. They all came back. And again, very, very fortunate as a Detroit City Distillery family to go ahead, and we did not run into those problems. So we're very thankful for that.
We're joined by Garret Passiak. He is the brand ambassador for Detroit City Distillery with us on the Megacast. And Garret, just a few more minutes with you before we'll say goodbye today. Is there anything else that we should be interested in or be on the lookout for going forward from the distillery?
There's always a surprise when it comes to distillery. You never know what kind of secret product's going to pop up. Definitely go to our website, sign up for our newsletter. Follow us on Instagram. We do get some of those times people say, you didn't tell me about that. And I find out the next day that something fun's going to be released. And as I always tell people, be on the lookout next Punchki Day for our Punchki vodka. Also, we're going to have a honey bourbon getting released right around December. So always stay in tune with Detroit City Distillery. You never know what's going to pop up.
And when should people be expecting some of those products to become available? Because what would you suggest for people that to be on the lookout for some of those specialty products? Because like you said, the things like the Punchki vodka, they go really quick when they are released.
They do go quick,
People want to be getting there as quickly as possible.
Yeah, so what you want to do is you want to expect, so for instance, let's talk about the 4-grain bourbon release. Of course, it is going to be available to the public on September 3rd. So that is the fun way to go and get it. If you cannot make it down to Eastern Market or your friends and family out of town, it will be available statewide in stores starting in October. So October 1st, I believe, it'll start hitting the stores.
We're joined by Garret Passiak, Detroit City Distillery brand ambassador. We appreciate it. Garret, thanks for being with us today.
Tyler, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of the morning.
We'll see you soon, Garret Passiak, brand ambassador of Detroit City Distillery, with us on the Megacast. We'll take a quick break. On the other side, we'll go from downtown Detroit to over in Franklin and be joined by Laura Peltz, owner of the Franklin Cider Mill on Franklin Road in Bloomfield Hills. That coming up next. You're watching and listening to the Megacast.
When times get dark, we can't see the help that's all around us. When you don't know where to turn, let 211 be your guiding light.
211, how can I help you?
Our guides are ready to connect you with the help you need. For help with food, healthcare, mental health, and other resources, 211 or visit 211.org. 211. Get connected, get help.
People are getting out to walk and bike in higher numbers. More vulnerable road users and higher speed traffic can be a dangerous combination. Crash severity has increased, so if you're driving, be sure to slow down and look for people. There's no need to speed. If you're biking, ride with traffic. If you're walking, avoid stepping into the road if possible. If you have to walk in the street, walk facing traffic. Learn more at walkbikedrivesafe.org.
When times get dark, we can't see the help that's all around us. When you don't know where to turn, let 211 be your guiding light.
211, how can I help you?
Our guides are ready to connect you with the help you need. For help with food, healthcare, mental health, and other resources. Call 211 or visit 211.org. 211. Get connected, get help.
Parents do a lot of worrying. Get your kids caught up on childhood vaccines to protect them from these 14 preventable diseases, and you'll have 14 fewer things to worry about. Vaccines are safe and effective and save lives. So let's get caught up on vaccines and worry about something else. Get the facts at ivaccinate.org.
One of the things you can look for in your friends is a change in behavior.
These can be big changes, they can be small changes in mood, physical appearance.
They may be sleeping less or sleeping more, drinking more, or their eating patterns may be different.
One big change that can be pretty obvious is change in motivation. Do they no longer want to play basketball? Do they no longer want to play video games?
Now that we're spending more time online and in virtual settings, it's really important to pay attention to the language that your friend is using and the words they're using to communicate.
So when we text our friends, are they taking longer amounts of time to respond? Are they not responding at all? You don't have to be an expert to try to recognize these signs. The second that you feel it in your gut and that you're concerned, that's the second to have the conversation and open the door to what might be going on.
Whatever gets you talking.
Welcome back to the Megacast. I'm Tyler Keith here in our studios in West Bloomfield Township as we continue to talk about COVID-19 and topics related to that, as well as interesting topics and projects and other things going on throughout southeastern Michigan and across the Great Lakes State each and every day, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 12 noon live and online on demand on civiccentertv.com/Megacast. And as we head into the fall season, that means we head back to our favorite local cider mills. And one of our favorites is right over on Franklin Road in Bloomfield Hills. It is the Franklin Cider Mill. We're pleased to be joined by owner Laura Peltz now on the Megacast. Laura, thanks for being back with us.
Thank you for having me back, Larry. I really appreciate it, and it's great to be here on this beautiful morning.
Appreciate having you on. So there were some changes last year at the Franklin Cider Mill due to COVID-19. COVID-19 is still a little bit of a problem now, especially with the Delta variant and the spread of that. So what should we expect in the experience at the Franklin Cider Mill this fall?
Thank you for asking. We are ramping up for our opening day this Saturday, September 4th. We'll be open from 8 a.m. till 6 p.m. and every single day between September 4th and the Sunday after Thanksgiving. So we've got a great season coming up. As last year happened, we were clearly following the CDC guidelines and the food service guidelines on how we offered our services and our products to all of our customers. Our main goal last year was to keep our customers and our staff safe. And I have to admit, we had a clear sailing here with all of our staff last year. It was just perfect. So now that we're under some reduced guidelines and yet some great fears of this new COVID virus coming up through Michigan, we've made some changes in how we are working this year. And some of them I know that our long-term customers will really be excited about. So one of the things that we're doing this year is we're opening up our press room to our visitors again to see cider pressing. So that will be terrific. We're opening up the front of our mill so that customers can come in through the front door again. But we do have one restriction, which is pretty traditional, and that is if you're going to be entering the mill, whether you've been vaccinated or not, you must still wear a mask for safety. All of our staff will still be in masks. We're not worrying so much about social distancing, but that's your choice on when you're in line or waiting for one customer to be served and you to be next. So we're not social distancing. Coming back into the front of the cider mill is a great opportunity to see our 1836 National Historic Site building and to feel the essence of what this mill has been for all of these years and for everybody's family tradition. We're also, again, offering, which is really helpful. We came about with it because of COVID, and yet it's been so popular, we're going to keep it on forever. And that is our online ordering. So it is so simple. You just go to our website, franklincidermill.com. The first thing you'll see is a red bar saying online ordering. You push that, and then comes the order form. You order online, you pay online, and then you just come to our side porch and pick it up. It's fast, it's easy, and it's definitely a safe way to buy cider, donuts, and the rest of our products. I wanted to talk again about some of our outdoor sales. So we're having our lower sales open in our community spot again. And so if you park in the back parking lot and come over the bridge, we'll have sales open both in our Franklin Favorites stand and in our lower sales. And now all outdoor sales are not mask mandated. So that really is your choice and your opinion on how to keep yourself safe. So we are opening with a brand new tent this year for all of the Franklin favorites that we always have loved, from their jellies, jams, chows, salsas, certainly maple syrup, some of the best honey around. We'll have cheeses and some meats out of the tent again. And also we're just really focusing this year on how to support all of our customers, who many of them have been cloistered still around the pandemic, and we are open. On weekends, we'll continue to have our mellow jazz that will purely embrace everyone when you come into our mill area. It is mellow, it is dear and tender, and it is just something that takes a large crowd that we often see and just has everybody relax and enjoying this great music that's coming. This year, once a month on Saturday mornings, we're going to be offering a listen and learn for children, 10 a.m., and our dates will be on our website and mentioned in our mill messages that we'll be sending out. So the topics for our three children's session are going to be certainly topics that you'll be familiar with. We've partnered with the Franklin Library, who'll be there and supporting our efforts. Our first will be on apples, our second will be on cider, and our third will be on our famous ducks. So September will be about apples. Donuts will come in October, and our famous ducks will be in our November session. So we're really excited about offering those to children. We're still doing historic conversations with people who want to bring groups to the mill. So we're happy to offer still to our rehab and nursing homes, our schools, our chartered schools, our other associations and companies are coming. So call us and we'll be happy to work out a schedule with you. We're so lucky to be here on the edge of Franklin because so many times when people come, our mill is pretty filled with people. But the Village Green is all of a 5-minute walk into Franklin, and the walk into Franklin and seeing our merchants there and appreciating our historic town is a wonderful way to take your family, sit on the green and enjoy your cider and donuts. So we're very excited about this upcoming season.
Laura Peltz joins us from the Franklin Cider Mill. She is the owner of the mill with us today on the Megacast. The beginning of their season is this weekend, and they open up their season Saturday, September 4th, and they will run through the Sunday following Thanksgiving. So the season already beginning down at the Franklin Cider Mill. And Laura, over the course of the pandemic, a lot of different businesses in a number of different sectors have had to or have decided to, because of the times, adjust and put more of a focus on technology. One thing that I really like that is beginning to happen with the Franklin Cider Mill is their mill messages, which will be sending alerts for special events and sales and other things that are going on at the Franklin Cider Mill. What led to that decision, and how can people sign up for the mill messages?
Thanks for asking. So last year we began these mill messages and we did them maybe 4 times over the season. We had such great responses from them that we'll be doing them every other week now, just updating you on what's coming up, what new apple varieties we have in, any other things that we're going to be doing for events which are still in development. So our mill messages, all you need to do if you haven't been on the list from last year is send us a email, and that is to the Franklin Cider Mill at gmail.com, and give us your email address and you're immediately placed on our mill messages. So we're looking forward to having those this year, and it's something new. We've made some major changes because of new, and one of them started 2 years ago, actually before we even had COVID, and that was we went to this mill which my family had always had as a cash only mill, became a mill that now that we're into this next century, we figured it was a good idea to start doing all credit cards, and we do. So we want to make this easy. We want to make it fast for you so that you can get out and enjoy your cold, fresh cider and your warm, just incredible donuts. And one other thing I wanted to mention to you, Larry, in the last 12 months, we have been awarded the best cider mill, the best of the best, and so many other awards that it's been a really exciting way for us to open this year, feeling great about our services and what we've offered to our customers in the last 2 years. So looking forward, as I said, to another great season. One of the things I wanted to mention to you, though, was I often go out and talk to customers. It's what I love to do best of all. So what I found out was I was thinking that this was only my family's family tradition. So my father, as you said, ran the mill. My brother preceded him, and now my niece Melanie and I are jointly running the mill. And so I thought, our family tradition, but when I spoke with so many of our customers, that this is everybody's family tradition. So one person called this morning and said, when are you opening? And I explained to him on Saturday at 8 o'clock in the morning. I said, and I hope you join us. And he said, my father took me, I took my children are taking their children. This is our family tradition. And that's what I love so much about people who come to the mill. It is a tradition.
Yeah, it really is, and it's been a tradition for my family as well. My grandparents would take my mom and her siblings to the mill when they were kids, and we've gone and had multiple generations there in the past years as well. We're joined by Laura Peltz. She is the owner of the Franklin Cider Mill, located on Franklin Road and 14 Mile, just 1 mile west of Telegraph. Their season begins on Saturday, September 4th, and runs until the Sunday after the Thanksgiving holiday. And so get ready. It's opening back up. And you mentioned that it's the tradition of it, both for your family and for a lot of families in the local area who either have grown up in the Birmingham, Bloomfield, West Bloomfield sort of area here in Oakland County, others that come back in from all across Michigan or around the U.S. and the world specifically to go through that family tradition each year. And as we're coming back out of COVID, slowly but surely, we're still dealing with it in a variety of different ways. How much of a focus for your cider mill has gone into relinquishing some of those traditions that were maybe lost last year and modifying them for the world that we're in, so that families can once again go through the motions of their family tradition and of a community tradition, but also not forget about the fact that we're still in the middle of a crisis?
So again, as I mentioned earlier, we are now opening up the front of our mill, one for viewing our pressing and watching our beautiful cider get pressed, and to see the golden runoff of the cider from the pressing, and then to see our bottling area also. Again, that will be mask mandated areas, mask required for anyone with or without a vaccine. Inside the mill, everything is going to be maintained for COVID safety for everyone. We'll have the front of our mill open again so customers can come in to the front of our mill. We'll have 4 stations set up, and so you'll get quick service, and we're looking forward to having you again. If you enter the mill, you must wear a mask. But our lower sales and all of our outside areas are wide open, and you can make your own choices about what you feel comfortable with in the great outdoors. We'll have all of our tables and all of the touch areas constantly resanitized and wiped down so that we're sure that we're making everything safe for everyone. And all of our tables and benches are all on the other side of our river so that we've got more area in our community spot where our lower sales are for our customers to mingle and see what's happening with the mill. And of course, we have our big water wheel still in process. Many people come in and just are amazed by it and ask this one question, which I'll tell you the answer to now, and that is, does our water wheel still power our mill? Well, it did until 1966, which was the year that my father took over the mill, and there was a huge storm that wiped out our mill pond. And if you ever look about mills when they were created, they all had a mill pond. Well, right in the middle of that season, that storm happened, the mill pond was wiped out, and we became an electric pressing and processing organization. So the wheel doesn't drive our pressing anymore, but it is a delight to see. And as part of our 1832 historic site, visiting all of those aspects of our mill is a real treat. Not very many mills are still around from those years.
We're joined by Laura Peltz, the owner of the Franklin Cider Mill, located on Franklin Road in Bloomfield Hills at the corner of 14 Mile, just 1 mile west of Telegraph Road. And just a few more minutes with you, Laura, before we say goodbye. Is there anything else that we should know as people are preparing to return to the cider mill this fall, beginning on Saturday and all the way through the Sunday after Thanksgiving?
I think that one thing you probably should be thinking about is, if you're going to come to the mill, my recommendation is come early. and that's really serious. We've had just an amazing turnout over COVID. Last year was probably our greatest service year in terms of number of people that we served. This year, we're thinking that we're going to be having similar wonderful situations. So come early if you want to hang loose here. Our ducks are still here, and we have duck food for you to give to them. We have learned that feeding ducks our donuts is not the healthiest thing for our ducks. Go figure. The last thing I should mention is often in this COVID, many businesses are really struggling with labor, and I want you to know that all of your favorite people have returned. We've had no problems with labor. Our staff are eager to come back for the 3 months that they get to be with us here because, as they say, this is my happy place. And for me, it's my happy place too.
Well, Laura, we appreciate it. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
Laura Peltz, owner of the Franklin Cider Mill, with us today on the Megacast. Their season begins this Saturday, September 4th. Find more information on their website by visiting the Franklin Cider Mill. .com, and you can get more information about all of their hours as well as their entire season, and sign up for things like Mill Messages, which will give you messages on special events and other things going on at the Franklin Cider Mill during this fall season. That's going to do it for today's edition of the Megacast. We appreciate you tuning in, and if you missed any part of the show, if you're just tuning in and want to view the full 2 hours, that will be on our website later on today at civiccentertv.com/Megacast. In addition, we'll have each individual interview, so if you don't want to sit through 2 hours, that's fine. You can watch whatever interview you want to watch specifically. If you just tune in and said, oh, no, I wanted to learn about what's going on this season at the Franklin Cider Mill, that interview will be on our website later on this afternoon, civiccentertv.com/Megacast. And as always, on our website at civiccentertv.com/coronavirus, helpful, critically important links to the Centers for Disease Control, the state of Michigan, Oakland County, and many of our local municipalities' COVID-19 specific web pages, so you can get reliable information, trustworthy information directly from sources on the front lines who are keeping us all informed about this novel coronavirus that has continued to impact all elements of our lives over the past year and a half plus, and will continue to for the foreseeable future until we get on the other side of this virus. A big thank you to all of our guests, Melanie Ducanel from the Better Business Bureau of Michigan, Byron Cancelmo and Sheryl Hauk, Garret Passiak, the brand ambassador from Detroit City Distillery, Peter Provenzano Jr., Chancellor at Oakland University, and of course, Laura Peltz joining us from the Franklin Cider Mill. Big thank you as well to our studio producer and board operator, Calvin Brown, our booking producer, and our Zoom producer, Larry Nyland, and our entire crew. I'm Tyler Keefe here in our studios in West Bloomfield Township. We'll return tomorrow morning live from 10 a.m. to 12 noon. If you are watching on My Michigan TV, Steve Lato Live is next on West Bloomfield's Civic Center TV. We go back to our regular programming with meeting replays coming up at 1 o'clock, and then will join us back here tomorrow morning, Thursday morning, live from 10 a.m. to 12 noon. This has been the Oakland County Megacast.